Good morning. Uh, Thank you for joining us for this distinguished speaker series. It's a cold morning, but today's talk will be on something hot. And it will be my pleasure to introduce Professor Erik Demaine, who is currently a faculty of computer science at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology since the age of 20, and reportedly to be the youngest professor in the history of MIT. His research interests range through algorithms, from data structures for improving web searches to the geometry of understanding how protein fold to the computational difficulty of playing games. He received a MacArthur Fellowship, and let me quote, computational geometry, tackling and solving difficult problems related to folding and bending, moving readily between the theoretical and the playful with a keen eye to revealing the formal in the later. He appears in the recent Origami documentary. Origami is 折纸 documentary Between the Folds. Co-wrote a book about the theory of folding, and also a book about the computational complexity of playing games, which I enjoy a lot, and I use it in my class of teaching. And his interests span the connection between mathematics and art. Particular sculptures and performers include curved crease sculptures in the permanent collections of Museum of Modern Art, New York. And he received numerous awards. And his, according to his webpage, his favorite one being a Tetris master. Tetris is 俄罗斯方块. He proves this game is MP complete and received the most honor of that. And his talk today is Algorithm Meet Art, Puzzles, and Magic. And without further delay, I give you Professor Erik Demaine.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. This is my first time in Taiwan, and I've been having a lot of fun so far and exploring lots of different places in Taipei. So I am a theoretical computer scientist. Maybe just to get an idea, how many people here are computer scientists first? I think most people, everyone. How many people here are theoretical computer scientists? Okay, just a few. And how many people are mathematicians? Maybe? Anyone? Okay. And so what I wanted to talk today about is some of the theoretical computer science work that I do that relates to some areas you might not expect computer science to come up, namely art, puzzles, and magic. And this is sort of a really fun world to work in, taking your main discipline, computer science, and seeing how it interacts with other areas. Usually you get lots of interesting interactions between two fields, at the boundaries between two fields. You see that a lot in things like computational biology, but it's a lot of fun to do it in things like computational art, computational puzzles, and computational magic. So that's what we'll talk about today. How many people here know what an algorithm is? So check, I guess almost everyone. So I won't define it, but you'll see algorithms sort of everywhere. It's just the way of thinking about these kinds of problems. And what I'm going to talk about here is joint work with many people, but in particular my father, Martin Demaine, who's here in the front. Nice. And so we've known each other a long time. And we work together a lot, as you may know. And it's been a lot of fun to collaborate, and in these areas in particular, we collaborate on lots of different things. But my background is more on the mathematics, computer science side, and Marty's background is more on the art side. And over the years, we've taught each other how to do both. And we work together a lot on computer science, and we work together a lot in art and sculpture and so on. So I wanted to start with a little story of how we reached this point of working together in these areas. So our story starts with the Demaine Glass Studio. This is before I was born, so this is Martin Demaine. Marty was the father of Canadian glassblowing, and he was commissioned to make goblets for the Queen of England and many great things. So this is in the early glass movement in North America. Our first collaboration came later, after I was born, but not much later. I was 6 years old. This is me. And this is my father. He looks about the same. I've changed a little bit. And we had this company called the Erik and Dad Puzzle Company. And we made these kinds of wire take-apart puzzles. Maybe you've seen things like them before. We split the money 50-50. We sold to toy stores across Canada. And this is a lot of fun and the beginning of my interest in puzzles, certainly, and probably also one of the reasons I got interested in mathematics. So the next year, for a period of 4 years, we went on a big trip. We traveled around mostly the east coast of the United States. So I was born up here in Halifax in Canada, and then we traveled around and lived in about 10 different places over a period of 4 years. And this was a very interesting experience for meeting all different kinds of people and being able to interact and learn from our neighbors and whatever they happened to know and whatever was interesting. We also, during this time, we did homeschool. So my dad taught me at home. And this was a very efficient way to learn. I could go very quickly on some things, slower on other things that were harder. And it was just a lot more fun. And we could kind of experiment with different things. I got really into computers early on, and so we'd spend lots of time learning about computers. And this started our sort of lifelong collaboration and learning together, I would say. So this is great experience, and in particular, I think leads today to our more collaborative approach. These are my co-authors on mathematics, and I think this collaborative spirit comes from that homeschool and traveling experience. And one of the things we're trying to do is take this collaborative nature, which is common in mathematics, especially computer science, and bring it to the art world, where it's much less common. And these days we're at MIT. We've been there for the last 11 years. And I guess I'm told this means made in Taiwan. But we're at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And this is a great place for us to do both the science and the art. I'm sure you know there's great science that happens at MIT and great engineering. But there's also a lot of great artists there and a lot of students excited about doing creative things, experimenting and working outside the boundaries. And also at MIT, there's a lot of tools that are available for doing serious things like building robots. But we can use those same tools for more fun things like building sculpture. And one of the tools at MIT surprised us that it was there it's called the MIT Glass Lab. And it's actually an art studio. We can call it the Glass Lab because it sounds more technical, but it's a glass art studio. And so for the first time, I got to see my dad blow glass. And then I got sucked in and started blowing glass. And now we blow glass together. These are some early pieces we did together about 5 years ago. And these are made as kind of puzzles for glass blowers to figure out how did they make that. So this is a big vessel. It's hollow on the inside, and then there's this kind of tree or tentacle structure on the inside. And it's not the usual type of glass blowing, and it's tricky to figure out exactly how it's made. This one is completely enclosed. You can see the bubble there, and then there's sort of tendrils on the inside, like fire. These are some same series, but some kind of more human-like forms. And so, I mean, you see the puzzle influence coming also into our artwork. What I want to focus today on are more the connections between the art we do and the math that we do, or the science, computer science. And one of the interesting things for us is how much these two fields have, we can think of them as pretty much the same thing. So both the art and mathematics are all about creativity, having the right idea, either the right problem to solve or the right approach to solving a problem on the math side, or the right idea of what to make or what to illustrate on the art side. So there's that sort of insight in solving your problem, and then there's execution, making it happen, either building something physically or proving something mathematically. We like to think of mathematics as an art form. and computer science as an art form, because we want to not just solve our problem, but we want to solve our problem in a simple way, in a clean way, in a beautiful way. So it's all about elegance. I mean, I think you all here want to solve your problems in nice, beautiful ways. So you are also artists for free. It's great. And so we like to take that to the next step. And in addition to just doing mathematics, we like to build sculpture that illustrates our mathematics. Initially, I started doing this because it helped me visualize the problems I was trying to solve. And this is especially clear in geometry, but I think it happens in lots of fields. It's one thing to think about and draw pictures of what you're working on, but to actually build it physically gives you gives you a third dimension, of course, but it also gives you a tangibility to what you're working on. And it can be fun as well. The big impact for us is that when we do mathematics, it inspires new types of art. And when we build art, it inspires new types of mathematics. So it goes back and forth a lot. And we find that a really powerful way to work. By doing both math and art, we can be better mathematicians and we can be better artists. And so we get sort of two careers for one, I guess. And so I want to convince you that this is a cool way to work by showing you lots of examples of how this has worked for us. So the big example I'll show, and the first one, is called Pleat folding. And we start from a sort of artistic challenge for us, and we'll go from art to math to 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 art over the last 13 years. And so I will show you each of these. We start with a very simple folding. This is a square piece of paper. You should try this at home. It's very, very simple and cool. Take a square piece of paper, fold concentric squares, alternating mountain, valley, and also fold the diagonals. And when you let go, the paper folds itself into this shape. And it's a kind of classic origami model called a hyperbolic paraboloid. This is the name of a mathematical surface. And the conjecture has always been that this folding, this pleated folding back and forth, mountain, valley, approximates the mathematical hyperbolic paraboloid surface. And it's a very cool design. It actually goes back to the late 1920s. You can see one up here at the Bauhaus School of Design. This guy, Joseph Albers, did a lot of early geometric paper folding. He was just interested in exploring what was possible using paper as a kind of modeling tool. So we saw these hyperbolic paraboloids and we thought, oh, this is cool. What if we took many hyperbolic paraboloids and joined them together? Could we build some new kind of sculpture? And so we actually used mathematics as a tool. We came up with an algorithm that takes as input a polyhedron, like a cube, say. And as output, it says, here's a way to join together, in this case, 24 hyperbolic paraboloids. So here's one of them. And that way of joining hyperbolic paraboloids represents that cube. And so in principle, this is an infinite series of sculptures. You take any polyhedron, and it will tell you a way to join together and make your new sculpture. So far, we've only made finitely many of them, but you could keep going. So that was cool. This is using computer science, using algorithms as a tool, but the result is art. And this is our first art collaboration, I think. So you can do the same kind of pleat folding, not with squares, but with concentric circles. In this case, you have to cut a circular hole out of the center of the paper. And there's no diagonals to fold now. It's just mountain, valley. And you get another kind of saddle surface. Again, this kind of self-folding origami. You just put in these creases and the paper just makes that shape, which is cool. Curious, how does it work? This also goes back to the Bauhaus, late 1920s. So the next thing we did more on the computation side is to figure out how does this work? What is making paper fold itself into these surfaces? So we built a simulator. And these top three images are photographs of real paper. And the bottom three are the outputs of our simulation. And so they look correct. And I'll show you an animation of folding concentric hexagons, something different. And essentially what's happening is the paper wants to become bent at the creases, but it wants to stay flat everywhere else. It's an elastic material, and so those are the key forces, and this is the equilibrium that physics finds for you. Now, once you have a virtual model of the physical folding, natural thing to do is close the loop and build a physical sculpture of the virtual model of the physical piece of paper. So this is a meter in diameter sculpture that represents that folded hexagon model. Essentially, we've erased the material of the paper and just left the crease lines. So these black lines, which are actually aluminum rods, are the crease lines from the previous virtual model, but this is a physical sculpture. And we've made it by 3D printing spheres with holes at just the right angles so that the aluminum rods fit together and build that framework that was modeled computationally. So this is a sculpture that you could only make if you have a computational model of the folding. So it's kind of sculptural proof that we solved the computational problem. That was the idea. But you see this back and forth from mathematics to sculpture. OK, so back to the mathematics side. We've, at this point, folded thousands of hyperbolic paraboloids. So it was quite a surprise a few years ago when we discovered, in fact, they do not exist. So it's impossible to fold a piece of paper with this crease pattern. This seems very strange because we folded them. They seem to exist. What's going on? There are a couple of possibilities, but maybe the most likely one is that the paper is never perfect. And if you look at this folding, even in the photograph, you can see it looks a little bent down here. We never could fold them quite perfectly. We thought it was because we weren't good enough at folding. But in fact, it's because mathematically there is no good way to fold it. And what has to happen is that there are extra creases in the paper somewhere. And they're probably so small it's hard to see them in real life. But we can model them computationally like this. So this is the same crease pattern, but we've added in these diagonal creases. And when you add those in, it is actually possible to fold this piece of paper. So with extra creases, you can do it. And it actually looks like a hyperbolic paraboloid. So this is our first real computational model of the hyperbolic paraboloid. So it's kind of nice. So that's back on the mathematics side. Now we go back to the sculpture side. This is the title slide. And in the background here is one of our first pleated folded sculptures. And this is in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And the idea here is we wanted to take the concentric circle model sort of one step further. And so we took essentially two circles. It's like a circular ramp that goes around 720 degrees. Normally you just go around 360 degrees. We went around two full circles and then joined the ends. And so this paper, and then we pleated along concentric circular creases. So this paper wants to twist a lot, even more than the concentric circle model. And, but it's kind of cool because it's just self-folded. We just put in those creases and the paper shows us what shape it wants to be in. We made a series of 3 different pieces. And it's amazing how by changing just small amounts, small properties of this sheet, like this one has a larger hole cut out of it. This one has the creases folded harder so that they want to become sharper angle. You can really change what 3-dimensional shape you get by small changes in the crease pattern through self-folding. And this is very exciting for us also mathematically and geometrically. We'd like to be able to control this process and say, oh, I want this 3D space station or whatever. What crease pattern should I put in so I can have this nice compact piece of paper. I put it in my space shuttle, send it out into space, and then tell all the creases to fold, and it pops into whatever 3D shape I want. That would be the goal. So we haven't yet solved that computational problem. We use sculpture as a way to explore what is possible in that design space. So back to the more computational side and trying to take control of what 3D surfaces we have. This is work with an architecture PhD student at MIT. trying to make architectural forms, so furniture, pavilions, things like that. And we're experimenting here with offsetting ellipses and in different ways, and getting some surprising results, like this is a nice symmetric crease pattern, but a very asymmetric 3D form. And with more and more experience, we're getting more and more intuitive control over what these 3D shapes look like, but we're still don't have a general mathematical theory for how to design. Back to the sculpture side, we kind of went back to the first example I showed you, which was to take several concentric square models and join them together. Now we're taking multiple circular models and joining them together. This is a piece with 3 concentric circles folded, and we just sort of squeeze one and stick it inside the other and let them expand. Maybe it's easiest to see them here. There's one like this, and then one like that. And they just expand and find a natural resting point where they want to be. And the next thing we did is, on the artistic side, is to take a piece of paper that's different color on each side. And so you get some fun things where the paper turns around, it switches color, goes from light to dark. And we've been experimenting with larger sculptures, adding more and more circles. So back to the mathematics side, we've been spending lots of time folding pleats back and forth and back and forth. It'd be really nice if there was a more efficient way to do it. So this inspired a new mathematical problem that we hadn't considered before, which is the following. If I want to make, we think of just, for now, a one-dimensional sheet of paper, and we just want to fold it mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, n times. I know that maybe I don't have to do every fold separately, because if I take a piece of paper and fold it in half, and fold it in half, and fold it in half, if I do n folds, I can make 2 to the n creases. That's a lot. It's a very efficient way to fold. But if I unfold that strip, it will not be alternating mountain, valley, mountain, valley. It will be a funny pattern called a dragon curve. So is there some way to use this more efficient way of folding, but get exactly the alternating pattern MV, MV, MV? And it turns out there is, and it's almost as efficient. With n folds, you can make 2 to the square root of n creases, and that's essentially optimal. So kind of bizarre. Also not very practical, because in reality, if you fold through more than a few layers, the creases shift a little bit. So you can't use this for making sculpture, but it's a fun mathematical problem and led to a new paper inspired by making sculpture. So back to sculpture. This is one of our largest pieces. And just exploring all the things that are possible, we've tried, this is actually folded from a square of paper. So this is one of the 2 of the corners of the square up here. And even where you don't crease the paper, it likes to curve in interesting ways. So this is folding concentric circles within a square. And some more pieces. And exploring different colors. And it's been a lot of fun to see all the different forms that are possible by weaving together these concentric circle models. So a combination math and artistic project is reconstructing the work of David Huffman. You've probably heard of Huffman codes, being computer science. So it's the same Huffman who invented Huffman codes at MIT in the 1960s. But he was also a pioneer in curved crease folding. From the 70s until his death around 2000, he made lots of very amazing curved crease designs. And he wrote almost nothing, or published almost nothing, about how he was able to make these designs. He wrote one paper. So we've been working with his family to reconstruct how, first of all, what the designs were. So for example, this is a crease pattern that we reconstructed for this design. This is one of my favorites. You fold these 2 kind of pleats very hard, and you end up with this model. And also trying to figure out how he was thinking and how he was able to design these models, because they're very rich structure. But he was a mathematician and a computer scientist, so he had a design procedure in his head, at least roughly. And so we're trying to get into his head and figure out or document his work so that more people can push forward the art and design of curved crease folding. Back on the sculpture side, I'll turn this down a little bit. This is my dad blowing glass blindfold. Don't try this at home. And he's touching the glass with a piece of newspaper. And our goal here was to combine paper folding, which is very tactile, it's all about touching the paper, with glass blowing. Now, this glass is about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. We use Fahrenheit because the numbers are bigger. It sounds scary. And you're really not supposed to touch glass. It's too hot. But we wanted to make it more like paper folding, where it's all about touch. And so Marty is blowing glass blindfold, where he can't see what he's doing, except by touch. And he did pretty good. He didn't even burn himself. We made a lot of different glass heads, and here's what it looks like to fold concentric circles into a piece of paper. This is, of course, faster than real life. Real life, it can take a few hours. In video, it can take a couple minutes. And it just pops into that 3D form all by itself. And if we fold it really tightly, we can push it through the hole and make a kind of ship in a bottle. And this, for us, was a nice way to combine these two art forms of glass blowing and paper folding. And geometrically, it's very interesting because we're adding a new constraint. These pieces of paper might kind of just sprawl out and not be very interesting, but because they're contained within this vessel, the 3D forms get much more interesting. Okay, so that was our little tour of pleat folding from art to math to 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 art. And it's been a fun adventure, and it's continuing to this day because we still haven't solved the grand challenge of how to design pleated folding algorithmically. And it's very exciting for us because we always get inspired with the art we do to do new mathematics and vice versa. So that was example one. While we're on the topic of folding and glass, I thought I'd show you a little bit of one of our most recent projects. This is an early experiment, but we've been working on this a lot in the last year, is glass folding. So combining these two areas even more. The idea is to take glass. This may not look like it, but it is all glass. And it's been folded in a kind of self-folding way, although it's a little more one-dimensional. So the way it's made is there's two types of glass here. The white glass is relatively stiff, and the black glass is relatively flexible when it's heated. So we fuse together different plates of it, and these black parts of glass act like hinges, like creases. And then here's me fusing these pieces together. And then we put them in an annealing oven. Here's Marty putting them in here. It's standing vertically initially, and as it heats up, it falls into very interesting shapes if you take it out at the right time. If you leave it in too long, it'll just fold like a simple accordion. But if you stop at the right times, you see it folds more at the black parts, less at the white parts. And so this started our interest in glass folding. And more recently, we've done a lot of different things with it, like this goblet that has some parts that have been folded very sharply and some parts less so. And this is in particular with Peter Hauck, who runs the MIT Glass Lab, and Amy Nichols, who worked on a lot of these kinds of pieces. And here we're a little more hands-on. So we wear these Kevlar gloves that let you touch the glass more or less directly. And we've been building different kinds of molds. This is just 90-degree angle iron. So we take very hot glass straight from the furnace, stretch it out, and then squish it into this mold, and it makes a kind of accordion pleat. And then we can pick it up and fold it into whatever shape we want. And this has been a lot of fun for us because it's very different from traditional glass blowing of making a perfectly symmetric vessel. There's nothing perfect here, and and it's easy to break symmetry, and more interesting usually to break symmetry. So it's very different from traditional glass blowing, and for us that's a lot of fun. And for us especially, it's very interesting to see how glass folding differs a lot from paper folding. Paper folds in certain ways. Glass does not want to fold in those ways. It wants to fold in different ways. It's more able to shear. It doesn't like sharp creases. It's much smoother, and in many ways, glass, I think, is more beautiful, or it's at least very different. And so it's been interesting to us to see what those differences are, and eventually we hope to characterize them mathematically and come up with algorithms for glass folding design. But what we know a lot about is paper folding design. So let me switch gears and go to pure paper folding. So paper, as you know, is very old. It was invented around 2,000 years ago, probably in China. Paper folding, we're not sure exactly when it was invented. One of the earliest books is this book from 1797 in Japan. And it shows many different designs, but this is a particularly cool one. We take a rectangle of paper, and we make two slits, two cuts, and fold each of these squares into an origami crane, like this. And we end up with 3 cranes connected at their noses and wingtips. So it's a particularly cool design. It's probably one of the most advanced designs at the time. You can, of course, extend this and make many, many cranes out of one piece of paper, and people have done that. But you see, at the beginning, people folded from rectangles. They could do cuts. So it's fairly free. But also, the designs were fairly simple. By contrast, modern origami design, which has taken place over the last few decades, is much more complicated and more constrained. Each of these origamis is folded from one square of paper, no cuts, just folding. So we have 3-headed dog over here and a dragon with about 1,000 scales. And these are incredibly complicated and would never have been conceived of 50 years ago. No one would have thought this was possible from paper folding. So it's very recent revolution in origami art. These are 2 designs by Satoshi Kamiya, one of the leading young Japanese designers. And really amazing. This dragon, I'm told, took about a year to fold. So incredibly complicated and challenging. And this is made possible thanks to mathematics and algorithms. But before I get to that, I'll show you some more examples, because they're really fun to see. This was a design challenge a few years ago to make an origami sailboat, and different people interpreted it in different ways. This is from one square of paper that's white on one side, brown on the other. You can get the sails a different color from the boat, and people of 2 different races. You could fold a kind of bas relief sailboat. You could fold a sailboat with the sails closed. This is technically very challenging. It's folded from one square of paper. Doesn't look like it. Here's a sailboat with the sails open. And again, it's a piece of paper. It's white on one side, green on the other. So you get a nice color reversal. Or you could fold a sailboat that's been broken in half into 2 pieces by a giant squid. And this is folded, again, from one square of paper. This is the crease pattern. The water is a separate sheet. So really an amazing variety. The top 3 designs are by MIT students. So we have some great origami designers at MIT. At Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So every year, this is a few years ago, but there's many origami conventions around the world. There's a big one in New York City. And every year, it's amazing to see what new ideas and new complex designs have been achieved by origami artists around the world. it's kind of a mix between geometric and artistic. This is not very fully understood mathematically yet. Some anime characters, this is more understood mathematically, and figurative design, some more nature designs. So how do you design something like this? How does an advanced origami designer approach something like this? There's a theory, there are several theories, but the most popular one is called the tree method of origami design. And when someone like Jason Koo, who's a PhD student in mechanical engineering at MIT, goes to design a butterfly, he thinks about which parts of the paper are going to be used by which parts of the model over here. So this is like the head structure and all the different antennae and so on. These are some of the wings and some of the hind wings and so on. So there's a theory letting you reserve different parts of the paper for different parts of the model. And that's a very powerful theory, and it's what has made, what has spawned this revolution of complex origami design, because you can go and learn this in a few months and start designing things within a year, which is very different from how origami used to be done. So just to give you an idea of what the theorem is here, what does this theory give you? It says, OK, let's not try to get exactly the butterfly or exactly a lizard. Let's just say, how many different parts of paper do I want? And how should they be connected? So I get to specify a tree, and I get to specify a length on each of these edges. So in this case, let's say each of these edges has length 1, and I get a head and some forelegs and a body and some hind legs and a tail. So how could I fold a piece of paper whose projection is that tree? So it has one flap of paper for each of these edges, and it should be the right length. That would give us roughly the right structure. It gives us the right number of legs and things like that. So the algorithm, this algorithm called the tree method, gives you the best way to fold a square piece of paper into that structure. Here, best means if you want to fold a tree of a given size, it uses the smallest piece of paper. So it's sort of the most efficient use of paper. And so this gives you what we call an origami base. And from that base, you'd have to do the artistic part, which is making it look like a lizard. So a more complicated example of this here is maybe you want to make a scorpion. So you design some kind of stick figure, a tree, that looks roughly like a scorpion, has the right proportions. And then you plug that into, there's actually free software called Tree Maker you can download online. It will give you this crease pattern. You fold it, you get an origami base, which it's hard to see because there's many layers on top of each other, but it has exactly the structure of this tree. And then a little bit of shaping, and you get your scorpion. Easy. So not easy, but nonetheless powerful. This is a theory that was developed over many years, decades, by many Japanese artists and Robert Lang in the United States. And over the last several years, the three of us have been proving that it always works mathematically. And we're almost done, but we've been almost done for a while. And it captures part of origami design. And as you've seen, it's really changed what origami art is about. But there's still this part at the end that is kind of unsatisfying as a geometer. You know, I want to design exactly the scorpion. How can I automate that part? Our best approach to this challenge is, well, so we started working on this in 1999. So this is when I was just getting started as a grad student in computational origami. So we asked the question, what shapes can you fold? Not just stick figures, but can I make anything? If I start from a square of paper, can I fold any polygon? Turns out the answer is yes, if the square is large enough. If I start from a square that's white on one side, black on the other, can I fold any two-color pattern? And turns out the answer is yes. I have a little example here. This is a 4x4 checkerboard, and it's folded from one square of paper. It's white on one side and green on the other. OK, easy. It even folds itself. So that's always possible. Any two-color pattern made up with straight sides you can fold. And in 3 dimensions, it's most interesting, you can fold any 3D surface. So you could design this on your computer. a 3D surface, and then in principle, a large enough square of paper can fold into exactly that surface. You could even two-color the surface if you want. So we proved this is possible. We came up with an algorithm for doing it, but it wasn't an efficient algorithm. It didn't give a good way to fold anything. What we're working on now are good ways to fold anything. So we have this technique, Origamizer, originally developed by Tomohiro Tachi in Japan. And we've been working together, again, proving that this always works. And it's also free software. So you can take any 3D model that you've designed. It's a classic Stanford bunny in computer science and graphics. You can put it into the software. It gives you a crease pattern. You fold it from a square of paper containing that shape. The solid lines are mountains. The dashed lines are valleys. It takes about 10 hours. And then you get, this is a photograph of a real paper folding. And you get exactly what you asked for. So very powerful and general origami design. And you can use it not just to fold paper, but to fold other materials, any sheet material. So here we've taken a sheet of steel, and we've laser cut it with a high-powered laser at MIT. And this is Tomohiro folding it. Also takes about 10 hours. I won't show you all 10 hours. It's a little faster. But in principle, you can take a single sheet of pretty much any material and fold it into any 3D shape that you want. So this could be really useful for shipping, for example, or taking whatever materials around and producing whatever 3D shape you want. So by the end, we get this bunny. So pretty cool. But it was hard to fold it by hand. Could we get the sheet to fold itself into whatever 3D shape we desire? So these are a couple of fairly small examples. These are just a few inches. So that you don't even need an origamist. You just tell the sheet, make me a table. It's time to eat lunch. And it folds your little table. So here we wanted a robot that could make any shape, because we didn't want to build a special robot that could only make a bunny. That wouldn't be as interesting. So we wanted a universal crease pattern, one crease pattern to make anything. And we found that this pattern called the box pleating pattern in origami design, which is just a square grid with alternating diagonals, could fold into any 3D shape made out of cubes. These are called polycubes. And so if you have any 3D shape you want to build, you can, it's like the 3D version of pixelizing an image. You divide your shape into little boxes, little cubes. And then if you have a large enough sheet, it can fold exactly that surface. And so you could have one robot to make anything. Now, in theory, for that to work, you need a very large sheet. So far, in practice, we've only built relatively small sheets. This is a 4x4 sheet. But it can make a couple of different shapes. So you send it one signal, and it folds into a kind of origami boat. And there's some magnets to hold it shut after it's been folded. And you get your boat, probably even floats. Or you can unfold that sheet, send it a second signal. It'll fold just these two creases. And what's happening here is there's little shape memory alloys, kind of muscles, pulling the creases shut just from the heat generated by electrical current. And you send it a third signal, and it folds along these creases. This is technically challenging because we have to fold through multiple layers. So the creases have to stretch, actually. This is much thicker than paper. And then you get your paper airplane. Does not fly. But, so that's the practice so far, and the hope is we can make sheets that can make what we call programmable matter. You could imagine this gadget, I push a button and it unfolds and it becomes a table. And I push another button and it refolds into a bicycle. Or I don't know. You could reuse material in very interesting ways and not have to carry as much stuff around. That's the vision. Related in that it uses very similar crease patterns is this result, which was originally inspired by an art project. A friend of mine had a result. It was about to appear in Nature, and it's about how the human genome folds inside the cell. And it related to space-filling curves. So this is a space-filling curve called the Hilbert curve. And we have printed on this sheet of paper part of the human genome. And it's folded. So we came up with this design as a way to illustrate folding plus space-filling curves plus genome. And it's an origami design. And so this was an art challenge. A friend of mine said, can you make something like this? And this is with Jason Koo, who I've mentioned before. And so we made it, and then we realized, there's a general theorem here. So again, art inspires mathematics. So the general theorem is you can make any maze. If you draw any orthogonal graph, like this thing here, it's not much of a maze, but it's a nice picture. And then you extrude it in 3 dimensions, you can fold that from a square of paper with this crease pattern. And it's actually pretty easy to prove. You just look at each different kind of vertex, like this is a vertex with 1 incident edge, this is a kind of a corner, a 4-way junction, a T-junction, and you just figure out a crease pattern for each of those. And as long as they fit together, you can fold your thing. And one thing I really like about this result is the scale factor. If you take a piece of paper, the thing you make is 3 times smaller. It doesn't matter how complicated this structure is. It could be a 1,000,000 by 1,000,000 maze, and it will only be 3 times smaller. That's very cool. And this is online. You can play with it. And should have it here. So you can generate an actual maze. And this will be the 3D structure in the upper right if you fold this crease pattern. I'd recommend starting from a very large piece of paper if you make this. Be challenging, or make a smaller maze. And you can play around and make different designs. And for fun, you can also write text. And it's possible to fold that from a strip of paper. Should be possible. Or maybe, I don't know if this would be easier or harder, but it'd be easier to get a decent-sized piece of paper for that. So here's just one example of a real folding. This is from a regular, like A4 size piece of paper. So it is possible to make real mazes. I'd like to make one that's big enough I could put a mouse in and could run around, but haven't done that yet. And we've taken that mathematical result and turned it around to make new kinds of artistic design as well. So this is a print we designed with Sarah Stengel, where we've taken one of those crease patterns and added in some ink, some gray regions. And in its unfolded state, it looks like nothing. The crease pattern looks like a drawing, and the gray looks like some stuff. But when you fold it, you get 2 things happening. One is that the 3D structure of the paper forms the word yes, and the other is that the gray parts come together and form the word no. So you get a nice kind of conflict between the geometric structure and the printed structure. It's kind of hidden in the original. This is one that we expect will never be folded. It's way too complicated. Again, it doesn't look like much in the top. Maybe if you're standing far enough back, you can see the gray part. But when you fold it, it all comes together, and you get the 3D structure of science with the 2D structure of art. So that's all say about origami art. If you want to learn more, you should watch this movie, Between the Folds. It's very good. Or if you want to learn more about the mathematics of folding, not just paper, but also things like proteins and robotic arms and 3D structures like polyhedra, you can read this book that we wrote, Geometric Folding Algorithms. Or you can watch this class, which is available for free online, same title, Geometric Folding Algorithms. We just finished teaching it this fall at MIT, and it covers in detail all the things that I've talked about and more. So we've just done the first part of the title. Remember, it's Algorithms meets Art, Puzzles, and Magic. So the remaining parts are puzzles and magic. So what do I want to say about puzzles? We're inspired by, actually, I'm curious, how many people have heard of Martin Gardner? He's very popular here. A few people know him. So he wrote this series of articles in Scientific American, I guess up until the 80s or so. And he inspired a lot of people to enter mathematics. He wrote about recreational math, fun math, and in particular he wrote a lot about puzzles and magic and mathematics and how they fuse together. And he wrote it for a popular audience, and so it was very exciting. It got my dad interested in mathematics early on, which eventually led me to get interested in mathematics. So we're inspired a lot by him. So one thing that we do is design folding puzzles. And for us, the fun challenge is to not just design a puzzle. Lots of people design puzzles. But we want to design puzzles that have sort of real mathematical content. And so each of these puzzles is designed around a mathematical open problem that we're trying to solve. This one is designed around a map folding problem, which we recently made some progress on, although it's still unsolved. This is based on a problem called checkerboard folding, which we've made some progress on, but is still unsolved. This is based on a polyhedron folding problem, which is related to Origamizer. And this is related to a problem called turning inside out, which is still unsolved. So the fun thing for us is to take these hard problems that we can't solve mathematically. We're still trying to, but it's really tough. Normally, you just say, I'm stuck, I give up. We have this extra option of, let's design a puzzle to illustrate why this problem is so fun and so hard. And it lets anyone interact with mathematical open problems, even if they're not mathematicians. So that's a lot of fun. And if you want to play with them, because mathematicians like to play with them too, you can go to our webpage, and there you can just print them out and start folding. So that was using mathematics to design new puzzles, but you can turn it around and take puzzles to design new mathematics. So you can take an existing puzzle, like Tetris, and understand it, analyze it mathematically, understand it computationally. There's been a lot of work on many different games and puzzles, but you can categorize games and puzzles as various types. There's zero-player games, like Game of Life. One-player games, like Tetris, Minesweeper, Rush Hour, Sliding Blocks. Two-player games, like checkers, Go. And team games, where you have more than two players paired up. And then that's the x-axis. And then vertically here we have bounded games, where every move you make consumes some resource, and like every piece you drop, there's one fewer piece. Or every time, I don't know, every time you make a move in Othello, you occupy that square, it will never be free again. So the number of moves is polynomial. Or there are games where you can go back and forth and potentially make an exponential number of moves. For each of these categories of games, there's a natural complexity class of how hard those games should be. Here it's NP, famous class. These are p-space, exponential time. Some of them are even undecidable, meaning there's no algorithm ever to solve it in finite time. And it turns out all the games that I've drawn here are complete in those classes. So Tetris is NP complete. That's what got me the Tetris Master Award. Rush Hour is p-space complete, which if you don't know what those classes mean, it just means these are really, really hard games. There's probably no efficient algorithm to solve them. Go, for example, you can prove is x time complete or x time hard, which means that you need exponential time in the size of the board. If you have an n by n Go board, you need exponential time in order to figure out who will win from this point, red, white or black. So it's very hard. Cool. So there's a lot of different results in this, and one of the things we're trying to do is unify these results together. So as was mentioned, we have this book, Games, Puzzles, and Computation, which gives one game that can be interpreted as a zero-player game or a one-player game or a two-player game or so on. And it's a very simple game. I won't describe it here, but it takes place on a graph with directed edges. Very simple rules, kind of minimal rules. And it turns out it is complete for each of these classes. So it's like the hardest game of any type. And you can use it to prove that these games are hard. Not all of them, but it's trying to unify all these things into one framework. So if you're interested in that, check out that book. I wanted to show you one more puzzle, mostly for fun. So this is called the dice rolling puzzle. Let me just define the setup. These are common on the web. You have a board, and there's some numbers on the board, and you have a die, regular 6-sided die. And the rules are when you roll onto a number, that number must be face up. So opposite this 2 is a 5, and so I can roll onto here. The 5 is face up. That's OK. If I tried to roll down onto the 1, opposite the 3 is a 4. 4 does not equal 1, so that's invalid. So those are the rules of movement. And the goal is to visit each numbered square exactly once. So I want to tour all the numbered squares. It turns out this is NP complete. And so to illustrate this important fact, we made a video. A movie, a whole movie. So without further ado.
Welcome to Dice Rolling, the movie. Right here is our Las Vegas right-handed cube. Each side is numbered from 1 to 6. Notice the bottom is a 6. Top is a 1. But I noticed that the 1 is actually a hole. Well, why is that? Good question. We like to get immersed in our research. Total immersion. I'm going to climb inside and learn dice rolling from the inside out. Okay then, let's get started. Okay, let me climb inside. Okay. Here we go. Put your head there. Let me get your helmet and your neck guard. Alright. Remember kids, don't try this at home. I am a professional stuntman, been training in this area of dice rolling for years. So protect your neck against cutting there. And we have a bicycle helmet, which will provide some set insurance. I hope you don't need this. Okay, now the plan for today is we're going to take a little tour around this maze, make a cycle. And we're starting in this position, we're going to end this position, but with a different orientation. We're starting in the 1, 2, 3 orientation. Remember that. When we get back to this position, we'll be in another place. That is the purpose of this demonstration. Are you ready to roll, Dad? Ready! Let's do it. Roll number 1. You okay? Alright. Still on here. Ready for roll number 2? Ready. Oh no! Are you sure? Are you okay? You okay? I think that wasn't a good idea. Maybe we didn't plan this out so thoroughly. Okay. Change of plan. We'll just make a small cycle here. Let's not use the full board, okay? Okay. Alright. Roll number 2. Take 2. It's okay. Yeah? I'm just scared. Okay. Roll number 3. Alright. Okay, hey, I'm up. Hey, hi again. Back to regular orientation. How's the helmet holding you? Okay, I'm glad I wore it. Okay, just one more roll, and we're done. Wow. How you doing? Okay. Alright, you'll see that we are back in our original position. Now, with the numbers 1, 4, and 5, with 5 on top instead of 1. Ta-da! Oh. Hi.
Notice no padding in the box.
Remember, I'm a trained professional. Well done. Thank you.
So ever since Marty is about 2 inches shorter. Anyway, that construction of rolling around in a cycle and changing the orientation of the die is actually one of the key gadgets in proving this problem is hard. But mostly, our goal is to add more humor to computer science. I think that's very important. Oh, another puzzle topic to talk about briefly is hinged dissection. This goes back to 1900s. The idea is to take a chain of blocks hinged together that can fold from one shape, like an equilateral triangle, to another, like a square. Is this always possible? It's an open problem. So we started working on this back in 1999. We were just getting started as mathematicians, computer scientists. And we started with simple shapes, shapes made out of little squares or triangles or hexagons. And we found this is pretty easy. There's a simple hinged chain that can fold into any shape made out of n squares. Just take 2n half squares. And similarly for all these kind of repeated shapes. So we thought that was cool mathematically, but could we turn it into some kind of design, some art? So we came up with an alphabet, a font, where each of the letters has the same area, and it's made up of little half squares. And so there's one chain of 128 blocks that can fold into the letter T, and then into the letter A, and into the letter I, and so on. And a square, if you want. So back to mathematics, we thought, OK, that's cool, but can we do it in 3 dimensions? So we came up with a way to make any structure out of n cubes instead of squares out of smaller cubes. And so then we turned that into a sculpture. This is with Laurie Palmer. It's not with cubes, but it's with blocks, and they're connected together with hinges, piano hinges. And it's an interactive sculpture. You put on these gloves. There's about 1,000 blocks here, and you can make pretty much any structure you want. It's made out of blocks, out of this one hinging. And then finally, a few years ago, we proved that mathematically anything is possible. You can take any collection of shapes, finite set of shapes of the same area, and there's one chain of blocks that will fold into any of them. So that was kind of an exciting, here we've solved the mathematics, we're kind of done. And it's complicated, but there's still interesting things to do in taking this to a more practical level. These are examples of making hinged dissections fold themselves. So here, for example, we have a square in a dish of water, and you add a little bit of salt to the water, and it folds itself into a triangle. So the idea is you could make reconfigurable structures without any intelligence just by changing some environmental conditions. And it's kind of the principle that makes DNA origami possible. This is a very popular technique. I'm sure a lot of you know about it, very successful. You take one big strand of DNA, and you force it to fold into a desired structure. This is the original 2D paper, but it now works in 3D as well, by adding little staples, little glues to force it to follow this pattern. And it's kind of a hinged dissection, but at a much, much smaller scale, 100 nanometers. We're experimenting with taking it to a larger scale. So taking, this structure is about this big, and it's a chain of blocks with motors, a reconfigurable robot, like a transformer, that can go from one shape to another. Here's an example of an even larger one. This is bigger than me, and it's a little bit slower. It's got bigger motors. It's heavier. But again, it can reconfigure into any shape that you want. And so the general vision, again, is you can make structures that can change their shape dramatically. And at this scale, you can do interesting things, maybe reconfigurable furniture or buildings, things like that. If you go to a smaller scale, so this is 1 centimeter per unit, you can imagine this little gadget, again, being reconfigurable into some very different shape. So this is our latest robot, just got released this year. So that's puzzles and implications of puzzles. Finally, we go to magic. Again, Martin Gardner is one of the key people here. So the first magic problem we worked on is inspired by this, actually a puzzle book from 1721 in Japanese. And it asks, there's this Japanese emblem shape. Can you make it by taking a piece of paper, folding it flat, and making one complete straight cut? So normally you'd cut each of these segments separately. Can you do it with one cut? And the answer is yes. And I will show you, I guess, a different example. So here's an example of a rectangle. I fold it flat. I take some scissors. And I make one complete straight cut. I get two pieces. And I get a little swan. Okay. Let's do another one. Someone want to help me cut these? Make sure I'm not cheating. Any volunteers? Volunteers? Gonna need. Come on up. There you go. All right, here.
Where do I cut?
Cut along the. Not anywhere. It only works if you cut along the black line.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Now cut straight. Okay.
Whoop.
Nice. You're a comedian. So here we get a little butterfly. Nice. You did it perfectly. One more. Here we go. You want to cut again? Or pass it on?
Director.
All right. Important. Yes. Oh, not that line. No, just kidding. No. You were right. You're right. I'm just pulling your leg, giving you a hard time. Any minute now. All right. Here we get. Angelfish. Cool. So as you might imagine, there's a mathematical result here, an algorithm, that you give it any planar graph, any polygon or any collection of polygons, you can fold a piece of paper flat, make one straight cut, and get all those polygons. And it's pretty practical, and it's fun. Motivated by magic, it turns out to have practical applications like airbag folding, but I will just go on to more magic. So let's do some coin magic. So imagine you have 3 American pennies, and I want you to all do this. You don't have to have American pennies, that's fine. But you're going to arrange them in sequence, and you can flip them heads or tails. So I've put all 8 arrangements here, so you can just pick your favorite arrangement. My goal is to make your coins all the same, either all heads or all tails. So if you chose any of these 2, you're done. Okay. Pick a different arrangement. Okay, now I want you to focus on your coins and project an image of your coins into my mind. I'm getting some mixed signals. Okay, first thing I'd like you to do is flip over the left coin. If you flip over the left coin, are your coins all the same? Raise your hand. Okay, you two, you had the clearest signal. Okay, so you're done. The rest of you, I'd like you to flip over the middle coin. If you flip over the middle coin, are your coins all the same? Okay, a few more. Good. So you're done. And for the rest of you, I was just confused by those other guys. Just flip the left coin back over, and now your coins are all the same, right? Okay. So obviously pretty simple. Magic trick, the interesting thing for us, it goes back to 1980. The fun thing for us was to generalize this, show how it works for n coins. In general, you need an exponential number of moves, so it's not very impressive for more than 3 or 4 coins. But it's a cute trick. You're working in a folded hypercube. But let's make it more challenging. So for this, I need a volunteer. Who would like to help me out on this trick? All right. So what's your name?
Shanwei.
Shanwei. We've never met before. All right. So I want you to come over here to the magician's table. And this is a touch screen, so you can touch these coins, and they flip over. And if you push this button, the table will rotate.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm going to blindfold myself. Maybe I'll, just for extra emphasis, I'll put something on top here. Okay. So, can you still hear me? Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do first is arrange the coins however you like, just not all the same. But you can flip them over, leave them, rotate, whatever. Okay, so they're not all the same, right? Now, I'm going to give you some instructions. Don't do anything until I say go. So the first instruction is going to be flip the top coin and the bottom coin. But before you do that, you can rotate the board however many times you like. You can rotate clockwise, counterclockwise, not at all. And then flip the top and bottom coin.
Okay.
Are the coins all the same?
No.
Okay. Didn't I pay you earlier? No. Okay. So that's fine. That's fine. Okay. The next thing I'd like you to do is flip the, let's say, the top coin and the left coin. But before you do that, you can rotate however many times, and then top coin and left coin flipped.
Okay, done.
Okay. Are the coins all the same?
No.
Okay, very good. All right, so then, let's see. So I'd like you next to flip the left coin and the right coin. But before you do that, you can rotate however many times you like, and then flip the left coin and right coin. Okay, are they all the same?
No.
Very good. So that means you have an odd number of heads. So now I'd like you to flip any coin, just one coin.
Okay, just one coin.
One coin. Exactly one coin. Okay, so now it's even. Now I'd like you to flip the, let's say, the left coin and the right coin. Sorry, are they all the same? Tricky, huh? Okay. Would you like to flip a different coin instead?
Okay. No. That's
No?
fine.
Okay, you're done?
Yeah?
Okay. They're all the same.
Yeah?
Wow, that's kind of a boring ending. Let's make it harder. Let's make it harder. Okay? I'd like you to flip any two coins. Flip exactly two coins. Wow, tricky.
Yeah?
Okay. Next, I'd like you to flip the top coin and bottom coin. You can rotate however many times you like, and then flip the top and bottom.
Okay.
Okay, are they all the same?
No?
Okay. Then we'll flip the bottom coin and left coin. You can rotate however many times you like, and then bottom and left. Okay. Now flip the left coin and the right coin.
I can rotate first.
Yes. You can rotate, won't matter, and then you can flip the left coin and the right coin. Okay? So you get the idea. And you can generalize this as well and characterize exactly what moves he could be allowed to do, and still I can force him to make the coins all the same. It turns out whenever the number of operations he can do is a power of 2, then it's possible for me to win. Otherwise, it's possible for him to win. So this works for 4 coins or 8 coins, but not 6 coins, not 5 coins. Pretty fun. Okay, so that was some coin magic. The last thing I'm going to do is a kind of rope magic. So I brought my rope. It's hard to get this through customs, but and I'm going to need some more volunteers. So somebody who doesn't mind being tied up. So the challenge here is called the picture hanging puzzle. Originally it was a puzzle. I like to think of it as a magic trick again. You take some picture, like here we have Taipei at night or at dusk. And normally you hang a picture on one nail. And if you remove the nail, the picture falls and you're sad. So you decide to invest in 2 nails. And normally you hang a picture like this on 2 nails. I guess that's normal. And if one of the nails comes out, then the picture will maybe get crooked, but it's still hanging. If you remove both nails, then it falls. But we're crazy computer scientists, so we would like to hang a picture on 2 nails so that if you remove either nail, the picture falls. So is this possible? So I need someone to act as my nails. I need 2 volunteers, actually, so don't be shy. Okay, 1, 2. We can take 3. All right, come on up. Okay, so we'll start with you. Yes. And I'd like you to hold your arms, keep coming, up like this. Those are the 2 nails. And we're going to hang the picture like this. And could you pick which arm to remove? This one? OK, I'm going to get the saw. No, I'm just kidding. We'll remove it from this nail. And now picture falls. OK? You believe me? I'll do the same thing. Which arm, left or right? Left. Good choice. No, it doesn't matter. This is it always falls. Okay. If you'd like to understand it mathematically, we're doing x1, x2, x1 inverse, x2 inverse. If you remove the x1s, the x2s cancel, or vice versa. It's called the commutator in the free group. But so now you all understand. Let's do a more complicated example. So could you come up as well? All right. Now you're going to put on arms up. And let's just do 1 arm for now. OK, so x1, x2, x1 inverse, x2 inverse, x3, x2, x1, x2 inverse, x1 inverse, x3 inverse. And now we leave. OK, you, sir, pick an arm 1, 2, or 3. 2. OK. Let's see what happens. Move this arm. And if I pull, imagine infinite gravity. Then picture falls. OK, 3 arms is a little bit too easy, so let's do all 4. And if you could get a little bit closer. OK. OK. It's just written there, right? Oh, boy. We're going to have to start over. Sorry. Not enough rope. Anyone have a longer rope? No. OK, let's do a little bit smaller. X2, I think this way. Maybe? No. Yes? OK, I think that's right. OK, could you pick an arm 1, 2, 3, or 4? 4. OK. Hope this works. I think that. This should. Is this over? Well, I hope it didn't fall. OK. Then this comes through here. And well, I did it really tight. OK. So hopefully that just comes down. And if we maybe pull your arms apart. OK. Let's try, I don't know, my favorite. This is my favorite one. So it turns out, I mean, this is making remove any one arm and the picture falls. But you can do more complicated functions as well. So I will do, so we've got a right arm, a left arm, a right arm, a left arm. And I will make it so that if we remove one left arm, the picture falls. But if we remove one right arm, it will stay. If we remove both right arms, it will fall. So it's either left arm or both right arms. OK, so either, Yeah, okay, not too close. Okay. Either left, your left, or both rights. Either left or both rights. Okay. So, you sir, could you pick an arm 1, 2, 3, or 4? 2. So this is a left arm, so that should make it fall. Okay, let's see what happens. Lots of stuff happens. Pull this. Oh, looks good. Yes. Okay, do you believe it? We can do it one more time, quickly. Either left. Oops. I'm gonna get this right. Either left or both rights. Okay. Either left or both rights. Okay, make sure it does not fall off your fist. Okay, and you, sir, 1, 2, 3, or 4?
1.
1. Okay, this is a right arm. It should not fall. This is a little bit harder to check, but you can see not much happened. This got a little bit of slack, but there's no end. Okay, so now, because that was a right arm, we need both right arms. Now, another right arm. Which right arm? So we move the other right arm, and now it should fall. If I got it right. This looks like it's falling down here. And then, yeah, we pull apart. Don't want to lose the end there. Oops. Stay down. This part falls. I hope. Yes, this way. And then, yes. Picture falls. So, general mathematical theorem is you can do any monotone Boolean function. If you know what that means, cool. Otherwise, it's basically everything. You could specify if I remove this arm and this arm and this arm, then it falls, but not otherwise. And it's a fun connection between puzzles and magic, where this problem comes from, and algebra and topology, which is how we solve it, and something called monotone function theory, which is used in cryptography and complexity theory and lots of cool computer science. And that's sort of the end of our tour of art, puzzles, and magic, and how they relate to algorithms. Hope you had fun.
Well, thanks for a very fun talk. And we have more time for questions. Any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
You pointed to me.
Sorry.
Suppose God give me a second life.
Okay.
I want to become you. How do I go about learning if I don't have I'm not fortunate enough to have a father who can.
Well, I was going to say the first step is you get a father, then you do this, and then. No.
A grad student entered MIT and decided to study what you do. Is
Okay.
there a possibility for that to happen? I mean,
Sure.
I mean, how do I go about doing it? What do I learn?
Do you mean, I guess the stuff that I talked about, how would you get into it? I guess there are many possible sources. You could just, everything I talked about, there's a paper, and you could read the papers. There's, for the folding stuff, there's the book that I described and the class. In general, the kinds of tools we use here are mostly algorithms. So you should take some algorithms classes in basic computer science and mathematics. We use graph theory, things like that. And yeah, ideally you work with people who, like us, who know some fun problems to solve. And I think the most interesting thing is not to learn what's already been done, but to try to solve new problems. So take your favorite video game or puzzle or magic trick and then start tackling it with algorithms and mathematics to say, can we generalize? What's the computational complexity? And just start doing research as a way to have fun with those puzzles and magic or sculpture or whatever. Whatever excites you, think about it with the computer science angle, and something interesting should happen. Maybe you'll be unlucky, try another one.
The pessimistic side of me saying that I would never be able to do it is that your students can never be good at it?
I mean, I think everyone can do something, and your mileage will vary, as we say. Some people will be able to do more in the same amount of time, some will do less, but it's still very interesting things, I think. And in general, the more practice you do, the better you'll get. So you just have to keep doing it. More questions? Maybe easier questions. Yes.
Thanks, Professor Demaine. Thanks for your amazing speech that makes us to discover the perfect mixture of art and mathematics. My question is, as a mathematical artist or artistic mathematician, have you ever considered to work with other people in architecture lab to build robust buildings that will be really safe shelters for people to live, and also without loss of aesthetic purposes? I think this will be better for art to get more close to ordinary people. Thanks.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We work a fair amount with architects. Would like to do more. It's a couple of different related things. One we've worked on is the structure of Antonio Gaudí, mostly in Barcelona. He tried to design extremely efficient architecture, and he did it by hanging cables and weights, and in a very manual way. And we've experimented with making it more computational, using computational tools to help design sort of optimal equilibrium structures, so they stand up better in theory. And they use as little as material as possible, but still they're very beautiful. So that's one direction. What excites me the most probably is making buildings that don't exist currently, namely reconfigurable buildings. So you have, instead of just one structure that stands, you'd like to be able to change it in different shapes depending on the day, depending on what you're going to use the building for today. And we're actually going to teach a class with Chuck Hoberman this coming spring. Hopefully it will be online, although I don't know for sure. Chuck Hoberman is also an architect, but also a toy maker. He made these Hoberman spheres, you know, that can get bigger and smaller. And so we'll be working together on both the research and teaching to explore what's possible by making reconfigurable structures and buildings and things like that. Yes.
I was thinking about her question. I was wondering if you could talk about the advantage of collaboration and how that furthers research.
Okay, good idea. Yeah, I think definitely one of the keys to being productive, like if you get stuck, it's very easy to get discouraged and then stop working or just keep working on the same problem over and over. But when you collaborate with the right people, so hopefully if you're a graduate student, you work with your advisor, but hopefully even more people, other graduate students, other postdocs, whatever, research assistants. I mean, everyone is fair game, and lots of people like to work on interesting problems. So if you have a cool problem and you get the right team of people, it's much harder to get stuck, much easier to have fun because you get to talk about your problems, and generally more productive. And that's been a very, very useful way for us to work. And I think if you have enough collaborators, you will be productive. And also you get to learn a lot from the people you work with because they have different backgrounds, so they know different tools. Yeah.
Do you have any plan with 3D printer? Because
What to do with 3D printers? 3D printers are exciting and powerful. They're a little bit slow right now. There's interesting algorithmic problems like how to optimally print or how to rotate your shape so that it'll be the strongest. We've been thinking of folding as a different way of 3D printing. So you know that you want to make a robot that has some structure. Can you make it from a flat sheet of material and just bend it up? The one advantage of that is it's usually much faster to make a 2D cutout, like with a laser cutter, and then manufacture a 3D thing. So it's a potential way to make 3D structures faster. That's maybe our coolest 3D printer idea. There's another question. One of you.
I'm sorry, Mike. Not very good. I'm a junior high school math teacher, and I am interested in programming and math.
Mm-hmm.
So I prepare for professor.
Oh, nice.
No, I want to ask. I'm sorry. I want to ask the paper professor use. Which kind of paper
Mm-hmm.
will you choose the paper to origami?
Right.
And the other question is, what kind of software will you present
The crease pattern or something.
present the pen paper? Will you teach us?
Okay. Lots of things. So what kind of paper do we use? It depends exactly what you're making. There's different thicknesses of paper, obviously, and also different strengths. Generally, with origami, you always want strong paper, which is made from long fibers instead of short fibers. So I'm not sure what papers are easily available here, but even regular printer paper can be okay, at least for simple models. These sculptures, for example, are made from a paper called elephant hide, not made from real elephants. It's just a very nice art paper from Germany, very strong. It's usually used for repairing books, but it makes very nice origami paper. We sometimes use computer-aided tools to score pieces of paper, like a computer-controlled knife blade or laser cutter to just burn partway through the paper. And this elephant hide works very well with those kinds of tools. That's why we started using it. These days we use another French paper called mi-tente. But basically you should just try a lot of papers and see which ones are best for your purposes. Some models you need very thin paper. Curved creases you don't need thin paper, so we like to work a little thicker. But if you have many layers, then you need thin. Okay, that was paper. And then what computer tools do we use? For drawing crease patterns, so when I do something like this, we have an algorithm to generate this crease pattern. We haven't actually implemented that algorithm. We just sort of do it in our heads. But we use a computer as like a kind of ruler and compass accurate drawing program. So something like Adobe Illustrator or any good vector drawing program is good for making crease patterns. If you then want to see what it folds to in 3 dimensions, that's still a challenging research problem. And there's some interesting software out there. Probably the coolest is Freeform Origami Designer by Tomohiro Tachi. It's available online if you look for Freeform Origami. And it can give you some idea of what this might look like for some designs. And it's very cool. I think I got everything. More questions? Yeah.
I would like to learn more about the collaboration because, as far as I know, the mathematics problem is hard to collaborate with each other. Most of mathematics question was done by a single mathematician. So how did you build the questions into a small part? And could you describe it in detail? Separate them.
Okay. No easy questions. So I would say a lot of old mathematics is done by one person. But actually, modern mathematics is mostly done by multiple people. And the way it's done it varies. I would say the most effective approach is to get a bunch of people in the same room on a whiteboard, brainstorming, basically. So it's like you're brainstorming some idea in some other field, but in mathematics, it's all about, we have this problem, how can we solve it? Or if we can't solve it, is there some special case we can solve, or can we find a variation of the problem that we can figure out how to solve? And you get a lot from that back and forth brainstorming, especially because one person may have an idea but not know how to execute that idea. And someone else may inspire someone else, oh, then we could do it this way. Like, oh, but I'm missing this step. And then a different person can say, oh, but here's how you do that step. And so if you have especially the right group of people, and it's hard to know when you have the right group, but that requires some luck, and with experience you can be more directed. Then each person, a mathematical argument has many steps, and each step is probably easy for somebody, but also hard for other people. So if you have the right group of people, each step is easy for someone in your group, but no one person could make all the steps. So that's the idea. Now, how do you decompose a big problem into steps? That's tricky. And some people are very good at this kind of big picture. I think here's a sequence of steps that might work, but I don't know whether any of the steps are possible. Other people are very good at doing steps. And so again, if you take the right mix of people, someone who has sort of the big picture, maybe we could do it this way, or maybe we could do it this way, and other people are more like problem solvers who can try to do those steps and see if they work. That's now, sometimes it's done live with a whiteboard. Sometimes it's done by email. Like, oh, I have these random ideas. Do they inspire you to do anything? Depending on if people are nearby or far away. Often it's done at conferences, because then there's many people from different areas. Yeah, that's the general approach to collaboration. Good question. Yeah.
A personal experience.
A personal experience. Okay. My usual example is a problem. Yeah. Thank you. So, one of my favorite examples is, well, let's get a working marker. Pick a marker, any marker. Better. Okay. Then we will use a different technique.
Yeah, just two work.
Those two work.
No.
Kind of. I'll use a projector. Let's say you have a polygon. And you think of the edges of the polygon as like rigid bars, and the vertices of the polygon as like hinges. And so this is what we call a linkage structure. You can think of it as a robotic arm. And it can move. And the question is whether you can move it to be convex. Like this. So during that motion, the edges must stay the same length, and the edges aren't allowed to cross each other. So this problem was posed around 1975 or so. It was open for a long time, and then three of us, Bob Connolly, me, and Günter Rothe, solved it, I think, around 2000. And it turns out the answer is always yes. You can always do this. For any polygon, you can convexify it without crossings. And this was one of my favorite open problems for, I don't remember, as long as it took. I guess 4 or 5 years I had been thinking about it. So I carried it with me wherever I went. So at some conference, if there's somebody who's vaguely interested in folding stuff, I'd tell them this problem. And we'd think about it, and we'd brainstorm different ideas. There was an email group, and sometimes we thought the answer was no. And we'd have some very complicated example and think that it was impossible to convexify it. So we'd stare at this one example for a long time, everywhere throughout the world. And then someone would say, ah, I figured it out. And they would show how to unfold it. And sometimes it would take us a couple weeks before we could figure out how to unfold it. So it was a big team of people thinking about it. Then I met Günter Rothe around 1999, I think. We were at a conference. It was maybe 50 geometry people. And he said, I have this idea. I don't know if it could work. But what if we could fold this thing so that you look at any two vertices, their distance should increase. I was like, that seems not true, not possible. But it turns out it is possible. So this is called expansive motions. And what's really nice about it is if you could fold any polygon so that all the distances increase, well, some of them stay the same because they're the edges. But if every other distance increases, then actually you're guaranteed that edges don't cross. Because if you had two edges that were about to cross, this is trying to go over here, the distances would have to get smaller, I guess. This distance would have to get smaller. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But folding or convexifying a polygon without crossings, it was very hard to think about how to model crossings, how to avoid crossings. It's a hard thing. But thinking about edges or distances increasing was much easier. And in fact, it then became, the problem entered a new field, or not a new field, a different field called tensegrity theory. Tensegrity. It's a funny word. It was made up a couple decades ago. But tensegrity study exactly these kinds of structures where you have rigid parts and you have parts that can only get longer. Conveniently, at the same conference, next conference, a few months later, I went to a different geometry conference, and Bob Connolly was there. And I met him for the first time. And he is one of 2 or 3 experts in the world on tensegrity theory. I had never heard of tensegrities. But he said, oh, well, that's a tensegrity problem. So Günter had this idea that was kind of crazy, but ended up transforming the problem to a different problem in a different field. And then a different person who's an expert in that field had a whole bunch of tools available. So, oh, well, if that's your problem, you can apply this method, and then this method, and then this method. And a few hours later, we solved the problem. So it was really about getting the right set of people. I mean, dozens of people have worked on this problem. But these two had this sort of the right powerful tools or ideas to make it all happen. So that was a very happy story at the end. More questions. All right. Go ahead.
I'm very happy to see that you put your algorithm into aesthetic aspect. And I have an easy question.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would like to learn about how can you put origami into industry or the field. Can you highlight several examples?
Okay. That's an easy question.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you very much.
It's a question I've answered many times, so it's easy. There are lots of interesting practical applications of origami in, did you mean aesthetic design or engineering design? Engineering design, yeah. So one example is whenever you have something big that you need to make small for transportation, these are usually called deployable structures. So say you want to send something out into space. First, you have to fit it inside your space shuttle. So you need to fold it down to some small size, put it in the space shuttle. Once you're in space, you can unfold. Another example is in your body. You want to, say, do non-intrusive heart surgery. So there's this thing called a stent, which you push through small blood vessels till you get to the big arteries of your heart, and then they can expand and declog your arteries, things like that. So there are some origami designs or origami-inspired designs of stents to do that. What else do we have? The robotics is the one that you've seen, where you can use different folding techniques to make robots that can transform their shape. So that's kind of new application I think is very exciting. What else do we have? Protein folding is another one. This is more on the science side. We've been trying for several years to take this kind of understanding of how one-dimensional structures fold as an engineered structure. Like if I had a robotic arm, I want to fold it from one shape to another. We have good algorithms to do that. The goal is to apply that to understanding how biology does it. And that's a lot more challenging. Biology is very complicated, lots of chemistry and so on. But there's some interesting geometric insights we can make there. I think those are my usual set of applications. But there are definitely more. Nanomanufacture is another one. So you want to make very fine resolution, like nanometer scale, 3D structures. 3D is very difficult. So it's a lot easier to make 2D things and then fold them up into your desired structure. Because we know how to make very fine resolution 2D structures from chip printing and things like that. So you can transform 2D structures into 3D structures using folding. So lots and lots of applications, and we always hear about more, and it's always fun to see what else we can do with folding.
We probably got time for one last really easy question. Anyone?
All right.
The automatic folding is very amazing, but even we know that origami takes time, and I find that automatic folding is very amazing. But for us, even we have the solution. There's a picture and a lot of mountain and valleys, but we still do not know how to start. Is there any systematic way to teach us, or as a tutorial, to teach us how to fold this stuff into a, like the rabbit? It takes 10 hours. But even for us, we even could not make it. Is there any systematic way to make it done? Thanks.
Good question. I would say no. It's the short answer. So there's many challenges for human to fold paper. I would guess there's two main challenges. One is humans like to have a sequence of steps. First do this, then do this, then do this. The second challenge is how do you explain each step? Both are not really understood mathematically. There's no good theory for taking something like the rabbit folding and say, here's a sequence of steps. Except there's a 3-step process for making any origami. First step is fold along all the creases. In other words, like when I make something like this swan, what I did was first I fold along the first crease, then I unfold. Then I fold along the second crease, then I unfold. It's very tedious. That's called pre-creasing. Fold and unfold everything. Second step, fold all the creases simultaneously. I guess actually it's only a 2-step algorithm. So then that's the hard part. So you fold them all simultaneously, and that's the part that's very hard to describe. There's some attempts to understanding that mathematically, but there's still work to be done, I think. So if you're folding all the creases at once, it's a very complicated step. All the complexity is there. But it's a lot of sort of trial and error and poking and pushing. But when you get close, then the paper wants to collapse into the right state. And then you're done. So, yeah. It remains a challenge, I would say. There are lots of approaches to presenting origami tutorials, but those are usually for specific models. So when we have a nice sequence of steps, if it's too hard to follow the instructions, you can make videos to explain it. You could have paper that knows how it's folded and tries to tell you what to do, where you've made a mistake, where you could fix it. So those are all possible. But the mathematics of decomposing into steps, that seems challenging. And not always possible. But there should be a way to design origami that is easy for humans to fold. That would be nice. Open problem to solve. We can all brainstorm on the whiteboard how to solve it. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming.
Well, let's thank the speaker again. On behalf of the institute, the director is going to present a gift for him.
Thank you.
And thank you for your coming this morning. And for your information, Professor Erik Demaine will be around in the institute until 5 p.m. maybe. And we'll be have informal discussions on the 7th floor of this building. So you are welcome to drop by to chat with him from time to time. It is scheduled to be from 2 to 5 p.m. on the 7th floor, 724. And let's thank the speaker again.